Anyway, back on the playlist, which is Learn React for free from Scrimba, my video journal of my journey going through it. Next lesson, let's crack on styling with classes. We did the child and parent. What was it yesterday? We did parent and child components. That was it, which went well. Now I think we're going to be doing some styling with Bob. Now, one thing I did notice on my last stream, that my head was on the bottom left, covering up a bit of the code. Now, unfortunately, on StreamYard, which is the streaming software that I'm using, it's like the logo in the top right, it doesn't allow me to move. So let's bring it up. So go into that view, get rid of that. It doesn't allow me to move myself over to the side, which is annoying. So I'll try my best to try and keep the code as it's going on the top left there. So StreamYard, if you're listening or watching to this, can you give us an option where I can move myself to the right, please? Much appreciated. Right, let's get on with the lesson, which was, as I said, styling with classes. Away we go, Bob.
This lesson with a sort of mini challenge. Our goal is to add a navigation bar to our little site here. And navigation items like this are usually handled with something like an unordered list with list items. So that's your challenge. Underneath our image here, your challenge is to add an unordered list with 3 list items for pricing, about, and contact. In the end, this will essentially be like adding some HTML to your page. So this should be pretty quick. Pause the screencast and work on this challenge.
I had the speed settings too quick. So what did he say? Sometimes when he's just going through quite monotonous stuff, I always bump the speed up, gets the video done quicker. But I had that set from the last lesson. But he normally puts the challenges up there, so that's fine. All right, challenge, add an LI. Sorry, add a UL inside the headers nav and create the following LIs pricing about. Right, that's fine, easy. Inside the headers nav. I'm guessing below the nav element. This is kind of in my eye line for my keyboard as well. On an extend. See, this mic covers up my keyboard. So I'm to do that. Maybe I should get a different mic placement. It is good, this mic, so use it for my podcast. Good audio quality. In the way a bit. Right, what do you want? Pricing about contact. Okay. Pricing about. Whoops. About. And contact. Bought myself a new mouse. I've got a like it's £10 mouse from Amazon. It's called TechNet. It's a tenner cordless mouse. Obviously, it needs batteries in. So I've just bought a rechargeable battery recharger thing from Amazon. I've got Amazon Prime. Brilliant, Amazon Prime. Trialing it. It's right. Okay. Anyway, these Meese Official Apple Magic Mouse. I think it's about 80 quid. I much prefer this. Really comfy. As this, you're cramped over it. Anyway, I'm digressing here, aren't I? It's not fucking mouse podcast. Right. Have I done pricing about contact? Right, yeah. Let's have a look. Done. So this is when I
Simply
normally
enough,
speed him
we
up.
can add an unordered list with our 3 list items for pricing about
How did he do that? How did he do that? 3 allies really quick.
out and contact. Let's hit save and see where we are. Okay, pretty ugly, but we're going to style this now. Fortunately, styling something in React is as simple as adding classes, just like you would in regular HTML. The only difference you need to know about is that instead of using class equals, we're going to use class name equals. And that's because under the hood, if you remember, React is taking these JSX elements and turning them into native DOM elements. And just like when we were creating things in vanilla JavaScript, we would say something like const unordered list equals document dot create element with unordered list as the type. And then we would say ul dot class name equals something if we wanted to set the class name. So in the end, that's why we're using class name instead of class in React. And so I will set the class name here to maybe nav-items.
Just as a quick aside, how much of a ball ache is it doing it in vanilla JS compared to this? This is more natural to me. This is how you write HTML and CSS. So +1 for React there. Do continue, Bob.
Hit save, and then in our style.css, I can add nav items. And maybe first let's take the list style off. So we'll say list style of none, and sure enough, our bullets go away. And that brings us to the next part of this challenge. Using Flexbox, I want you to line up the nav items horizontally so that they sit next to each other like this. And then also using Flexbox, I want you to line up the unordered list with your newly horizontal list items to be in line with our logo so that everything is nice and aligned just like we have in this image. In doing so, I want you only to use CSS classes. I don't want you to select any bare elements like the whole nav or anything like that, mostly just so we can get some practice typing out class name. Pause the screencast and work on this part of the challenge.
Okay, so we need to target the whole nav to vertically center, and we need to target the whole nav for its child items to become flex items. Jut that to the left, jut that to the right. Right. Okay, so we need to give the nav a class. Class name. Class. Camel cased, I've noticed, as Bob just said. It matches the DOM scripting way of doing it, I guess. Oh. The way, hell of a lot more intuitive than what should we call this? What did he say about using Flexbox to link up the nav items horizontally? What did he say about not targeting the nav? I don't know. Nav items. What should we call it? I don't know. Nav. Whatever. Right, so we've got that. Take that. Go into the CSS. Do something like this, Mike. You hear me now? Get it under. I'll just leave that now. I'll sort this out after. Right. See, it's making me write dots at the beginning. At the end, goes at the beginning. Display flex. That doesn't work. DF works in Visual Studio Code. Oh, it can't do that. Can do that. Yeah. Flex. Yeah. Doesn't auto close. Annoying. You need to do line items. Content. Space around or space between. Let's try that. Right, that's worked, but yeah, okay, we need to. No, it's not. It's that space between. If you watch. That's right, I'm about. I need to write some CSS for that. I naturally went to the HTML file. Operating in a new paradigm now. Your HTML's in the JS. Right. So that's currently top to bottom. We want that left to right. So we target that. See what that's doing the site nav. That's taking, hang on a minute. That should be left align. That should be, well, let's sort this out first. So as I was saying, the site nav is making, so I've targeted that, turn that into flex items to put that there. This element to the left and this element of navs to the right, but we'll sort that out in a minute. Okay, so the nav items is this area here. So we need to turn these into flex items and make them go left to right. Do that by going display flex. See? Just going past. So there's this gap there and the gap there. So I'm pretty sure this is space between. It needs to be sorted. He's got a bit of a space there, so we want the element in there. So I'll press space and it automatically just doesn't on here. In about. No sass. Writing sass there. God, it's traditional HTML, traditional HT. Might be able to speak one day. Traditional CSS is painful to write after you've been writing sass. Do this. No nesting in null CSS. Just dog shit. Should work. Yep. Look at Bob's. How does mine compare? A bit bigger, isn't it? That's all right. Bit more padding, maybe. Oh. Centered. What does that do? Can you move that? Yeah, you can. I'm just looking to see if this is centered with this. Is it? It looks okay. Anyway, horizontally centering. So vertically centering is quite trivial with Flexbox. It's pretty easy. That's why I did that. Let's just take that center out, see what it does. Cool. I'm not enamored with this little thing. Why can't I write? Why can't I write? Why does it keep minimizing? Well, right. Well, I've done it anyway. Look, if you can see there. Although without any Flexbox knowledge, I wouldn't been able to do that. It's a bit weird. I've got it.
Well, let's piggyback off our nav items class, which we already have. I should just be able to change the display to flex. And sure enough, that gives me all of my items in a row. Now let's put our list item in line with our logo image here, and then we'll worry about some spacing between these items. Back in my code, I'm going to probably give my nav a class name of nav. Of course, I could have just selected the whole nav element, but like I mentioned, we're here to practice class names. So I'll make a class name of nav and we'll select our nav. Let me hit refresh over here so that the styles will apply immediately. And I'll give this a display of flex. Awesome. Our elements are.
Hang on a minute, Bob. Oh no, he's put the dot in. Let him off. I was just about to slag him off, saying he's just. selected the nav without the class name, but it's just called it nav. That's a bit of a weak class name in my opinion.
In a line. Now, because my nav only has two elements, the image as the first element and the unordered list as the second element, I guess I should say two direct children, I can just use justify content space between to push that pricing about and contact items to the far right. It also looks like our logo got a bit stretched. That just kind of happens in Flex containers. So I'll say align item center, and that should fix my aspect ratios of the image. And then I'll go ahead and add a little bit of space between my list items there. I know I mentioned using classes, but in the case of list items, I usually prefer to select the unordered list by its class and then just select all the list items. That way I don't have to go in and add a class name to every single one of my list items. Let's just give those a padding of maybe 10 pixels. Okay.
I don't know why he's used the greater than symbol. What that's saying is only apply it to the immediate descendant selector. Don't need to do that because there's no others. Anyway, just taking Bob to school there in CSS.
Hey, that's looking pretty good. Now, my image is looking a little bit small to me. I want to make it bigger, but oh yeah, we added this width attribute. But now that we know how to style with classes, let's have sort of an impromptu third part of this challenge. Okay, your task is to change the image styling to happen in the CSS instead of right here in line. And of course, for practice, let's add a new class to the image just so you can style it that way. Pause the screencast and work on this part of the challenge.
Okay, should be fairly straightforward. So get rid of that. Give it a class name of like Bob. I won't just call it image or nav. Something meaningful. Or semantic. To use bullshit programmer terms. Terms that programmers like to use to make things sound more complicated than they really are. And there's another one. Fucking parentheses. Parentheses, my arse. Anyway, I'm ranting again. Right. So what is it? It's a logo image. Logo. Right, so that's the correct JSX way of doing the class name. So bump into CSS. Logo. Remember what we want to do. Just give it a, did he say make it bigger? Okay, let's make it 80. Yep, too big. Make it 60. I don't think this really matters, but I think what he's trying to do is get us using class names in React, which I've done. Force of habit was going to HTML again. I'm going to have to get out of this mindset. Right, class name logo. Yeah, that's worked. Let's see what you do, Bob. So if I press play.
Simply enough, we can take our width out, which is going to make our image pretty huge if I refresh, but we'll give it a class name. Let's call it nav-logo. And then we will select our nav logo and let's give it our width of 40 pixels again. I have to hit refresh over here. Okay, we're back where we were. Actually, this logo is looking a little small. Let me try 60 pixels. Yeah, I think I like that size better. At this point,
I put it 60. Great minds think alike, Bob. Great minds think alike.
I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to continue practicing styling this page. Obviously, this page is really small in its scope. And so before we just push forward, I would like you to spend at least a few minutes styling up this page, making it look a little bit nicer, add your own flair to it. In fact, I actually did that and put maybe 5 minutes of styling into it, which obviously shows it's not going to win any design awards. But I did change the font to use a Google font. I added this little box shadow under our nav bar. I moved the footer down to the actual footer section of our page, the bottom of our page, and added some really basic styles to it. So this is a great opportunity, not only for you to flex your CSS skills and get your hands on the keyboard and do some practice, but also to interact with the Scrimba community, especially on Discord. Once you've styled something up that looks, well, pretty much anything's going to look better than this. Once you have some kind of style added, take a screenshot and share it in Discord. As you make changes to your code here in Scrimba, it will create a note that you can save, and you can even share that on Twitter. You can share the link to that in Discord, whatever it takes for you to get involved with the Scrimba community. Once you've had a chance to apply some of your own creativity to this little page, the next thing we're going to do is clean up our code here, where right now we have everything kind of stuffed into our index.js file. And we're going to learn how we can move these components into their own folders and clean up our code a bit. We're going to start off this lesson with a sort of mini challenge. Our goal is to add a navigation bar to our little site here. And navigation items like this are usually handled with something like an...
What happened there? I won't be doing that because I know CSS pretty much inside out. So I'm not here to learn CSS. I'm here to learn React. Don't want to sound big-headed or anything, but wasting my time. Right. That was styling with classes. Reasonably straightforward, I think. Just use class name in the JSX as opposed to just class, which is the traditional HTML way. That can just being able to add class name and write more HTML-esque commands, like just being able to write HTML in the JavaScript rather than having to do all that DOM manipulation rubbish just to achieve the same thing, like create an element, add a class name, toggle class on, off. I think it's a lot more preferable to do it in a React component because it's more natural. It's more writing HTML, writing CSS than having to do all this under the hood stuff. What was it called? Declarative and imperative, wasn't it? Yeah, this is more declarative rather than that. Was it imperative? What's the word they used? React, it's declarative. Yeah. So we're declaring what we want to happen and we're letting React deal with it rather than having to go through every single step in DOM scripting one by one in vanilla JS. So yeah, that was styling with classes. Next up, we've got organize components. Ooh. Wonder what that's going to be. Anyway, see you on the next stream.